to introduce Sally Swartz. She's from DA France, and she's the chair of the Global Women's Caucus Reproductive Justice Team. Sally, do you want to
Sure.
go ahead?
Thanks, Angela. I'm going to introduce Carol, who is not only a friend, but a great personal friend, but a great friend to DA and to our team. She's a retired lawyer, banker, and a Democratic activist committed to promoting women's rights. Of course she is. She has been a member of DA United Kingdom for over 30 years. She's the former chair and the founding chair of the Democrats Abroad UK Women's Caucus and a member of the DA Global Women's Caucus Reproductive Justice Team. Carol and I both sit on the steering committee of the Global Women's Caucus as well. With a second home in Florida, she volunteered in 2012 for the Obama campaign and since then has been a precinct leader in the town of Palm Beach in Florida. Carol is going to walk us through the process of getting together a broad coalition of women's rights organizations who launched an amendment campaign last spring, so it's recent, after Governor DeSantis signed a 6-week abortion ban. And it wasn't alone, by the way, in our country. He's not alone, and there are about 26 states, by the way, who have either restricted or completely banned abortion. Anyway, back to Carol. 10 months was a very short time frame to get the 890,000 plus, we're almost there, signed petitions approved in Tallahassee to get an amendment on the ballot, which will give women the right to choose. So Carol, why don't you describe all the work you've done, the success that you've had with others, of course, and what we need to do to get this done. Thank you, Carol.
Oh, well, thank you, Sally. And it is always, as you know, a pleasure to work with you on this subject. And we still have a lot of work to do. So hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us this evening. We are really needing to work to get this amendment on the ballot. And, we're really fortunate. The good news is we've got over 900,000 raw petitions in, but I'll get to that in a moment. I got interested in this early on as a young law student when Roe versus Wade was passed in 1973. That was the years of the new second wave of feminism. Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, I have to say, I naively thought the doors were opening, and some of them, of course, did. But it really, it hasn't gone smoothly, to say the least. Angela, could you put up my slides now? Thank you. So what we're talking about is what Florida women and men and organizations are trying to do. And you've heard a bit about from what Joe was talking about how really to protect this, given we have conservative justices and judges in courts, as well as in the legislature, that a constitutional amendment has been viewed and is the path we're taking to try and open up abortion rights again in Florida. I'll take the next slide, please. So this is post Dobbs. It is shocking. As Sally said, you see the brown states. These are approximately 20 that have the most severe restrictions, limiting abortion completely or to 6 weeks, which is the obvious, also not really allowing a woman to even know she's pregnant, across the country. It has been a terrible 18 months for women in this country. In the 10 years from 2009 to 2019, abortions actually decreased in the United States. And we can imagine, with access to contraception, there were difficult, of course, it was a stagnant time in our economy, and abortions were available. But they, with medicated contraception, people didn't necessarily need them. And the other good news with that period was that teenage pregnancies and abortions came down. That changed with COVID to some extent. The number of abortions, the last national number I saw was for 2020, and there were about 930,000 abortions in 2020 that occurred in the United States. And we know now it's a combination of medically induced abortions as well as abortions that happen in a clinic. I want to look at Florida to see what is happening there. If I could have the next slide, Angela. So the timeline on the Republican attacks, they started before Dobbs, and this happened in a number of the states, particularly in the South, that the legislature passed civil provisions to restrict access to abortion, trying to make it more expensive, trying to make it more difficult for women to actually have the time to do it. Some of the measures they put in place was to require 2 visits to a clinic, first to give written consent, have an ultrasound, and a 24-hour waiting period before the procedure could occur. Only physicians could provide abortions, which is not necessary. This can be done by other medical specialists, but it limited the number of clinics that could get hold of doctors to do the abortions. And health insurance policies sold on Florida's exchanges or purchased with public funds could not be used to cover abortion except in cases of rape, incest, or danger to the mother. So our Republican dominated Tallahassee legislature and governors were going after women even before Dobbs. Next slide, please. So post-Dobbs, there's been a couple of attacks already. It started right away with Dobbs in July of 22, when the legislature passed the abortion ban, taking it at 15 weeks, with the limited sections of if the mother is in danger or if there are fetal abnormalities. There's no exception in that law for rape, incest, or human trafficking. But quite quickly, Planned Parenthood and others brought suit against that state law. Florida, in its state constitution, has an expressed right to privacy, which had been defending challenges to access to abortion previously. However, our concern is that we just had elected to the Florida Supreme Court 3 conservative judges. So we are not optimistic about this case. Arguments were heard in September. There's no indication of when a decision will be handed down, and the 15-week ban is in place. And there are rumors that a decision will not come down until after the amendment collection period is over, for fear that a negative decision would push more and more people to sign petitions. Who knows? But it certainly wouldn't put it past anyone. So we now have, of course, as many of you know, DeSantis went even further just this year, and the legislature passed, and he signed a 6-week limit on abortions, the most extreme. And it is held up as well. But if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the 15-week ban, the 6-week ban will actually come into effect within 30 days of that decision. So this is really a absolutely critical battle that's happening here in Florida. The next slide, Angela. So what's happening? Well, the progress, Floridians Protecting Freedom came together they actually had been planning before Dobbs came down. As we all know, it was leaked well in advance. And then when the governor came up with the 6-week abortion limit, that triggered the group to come together and fundraise and begin their campaign last May. And we in Democrats Abroad, within 3 weeks, circulated the petition to our thousands of Florida voters around the world. I'll now mention why the difference between what's happening with our petition versus what happened with clean water is that the leaders knew from what happened in particular with the felon amendment, how that got passed, was that you have to pay to get a large amount of petitions collected. You have to pay collectors. And so the Florida's Protecting Freedom went on a big fundraising campaign, and they have raised $10 million, mostly from Floridians. Unlike Ohio, for some reason, they were not able to attract great big donors from out of state, but they were able to hire the amendment collectors. So that the good news is, as of last week, we do have over 900,000 raw petitions. That meaning that they're in the campaign headquarters, they're being vetted. And the way the process works in Florida is that the petitions now go to the county supervisor of elections. They have to compare signature with the registered Florida voter before it can be sent on to Tallahassee. That process can take up to, and I think they're legally required to finish it within 30 days. And we have, I believe the number is over 500,000 petitions already in Tallahassee. And the rest of this 400,000 is either in Sarasota, where the headquarters are of the campaign, or they're out with the our 67, if I remember correctly, 67 county supervisors of elections who have varying abilities to get these petitions through. And we hope they'll meet their legal requirement and get them through. The bad news is some of them are disqualifying these petitions either on a signature mismatch, we have heard that before, or sometimes our petition supporters put down the wrong county. So several, I think 10 or 12,000 have been disqualified, which is why we're continuing to ask people to send in petitions, just to make sure we've got that cushion of validated petitions. And the ultimate date is February 1st, but we really need to have them in the county SOEs by January 1st. So the campaign is asking for people to try to get petitions in by December 15th, but they'll still accept petitions after. But there are a couple more hurdles. Just so you understand, I'll just go in the weeds a little bit here to say that there is a requirement to get a certain number of petitions from 14 congressional districts around the 28, half the congressional districts in the state. We have 28 congressional districts now. And that is a real target right now of the campaign, because we have 10 districts where we're short petitions. And they have the strategy, they're sending our paid petition collectors into those districts to get over this last hurdle. So with success, which we're pretty optimistic about, the next stage of the campaign is to get the 60+ votes needed to get the amendment passed next November. And state polling shows that over 2/3 of the Floridians are in favor of reproductive freedom, similar to Americans in other states. And I'll end with one story I just heard early this week at an Emily's List gathering from a Congresswoman, Amelia Sykes from Ohio. And she's from Akron, Ohio. And she said in her district, there were several towns that voted for Trump in 20, but for the Ohio petition, over 60% of those towns voted yes to protect abortion rights. So I think, even though I know Democrats are a little discouraged at 22 that we didn't do so well, I think issues like this, where Republicans are trying to take away our freedom to insert themselves in decisions that women and their families should be making with their doctors, and not being doctors being hamstrung to give quality service at this time, to their patients, that we really can be optimistic about this. So I will ask you to just think if there are any other Florida friends or family that you can get this petition to, who could get it in over the next few weeks, please do so. And thank you very, very much for helping us motivate Floridians to take back our rights from the horrible DeSantis and his crew up in Tallahassee. Thank you. Any questions?
We have a couple of hands up in the chat. The first question is from Scott.
Hi,
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Hi, Carol. I was back in the United States earlier this year. My wife and I signed the petitions, actually petitions for all three amendments, sent them off to the address on the petition form, which is the organization that is sponsoring the specific amendments. I had occasion, because of my work with Hillsborough County, to do a public records request to the Hillsborough County Supervisor of Elections, asking for all of the information on people who had submitted petitions. And as an aside, we're going around and trying to cure those that we can that were rejected. But I noticed my name and my wife's name was not on that list. I've seen some people say that it may take 60 days, but between the time that a petition is received by the organization to get to the supervisor. But I'm just, should I guess my question is, should we fill out new petitions and send them directly to the supervisor of elections? Is that allowed, or do all of the petitions have to go back through the sponsors?
Scott, I don't know the answer to that, but I can take it up tomorrow and get back with you, because we do have contacts with the campaign itself. So
okay, thank you.
I hadn't run across that before. I know I have several friends who have left it a month or so, called the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections, and they had confirmation that their petitions had been approved and had been sent off. But I don't know what I can imagine in Sarasota, where they're processing these. They are relying on volunteers, and it's disappointing to know it may have been delayed by that. But I'll get back to you on that. Thank you.
Our next question is from Kelly.
Kelly, hi.
Hi, Carol. Just a question. In terms of getting, like, hopefully this will be on the ballot in 24. And I thought I saw that you said that we'll need 60% in favor. Is that a hopeful thing, or is that actually we need 60%? Because Ohio they only passed the Ohio vote by 57%.
Yeah. Well, remember August, the legislature tried to get it up to 60. It has been 60% in Florida for a number of years.
I know, but
yeah, it is it's not an aspiration. It is a Florida requirement.
Okay.
There was something,
Okay.
I can't remember what it was. Something got to somebody, a friend told me they had a petition. I've only been in Florida 10 years as a voter. A number of years ago, they got to 57% and it did not pass. Fortunately, the felon rights amendment, I think, got to 65%. And so that passed.
Okay.
But yeah, but we're optimistic, as I mentioned, Kelly, with the polling. And I think there are more and more horror stories being told by doctors and women of what this actually means for families. So I'm hoping, and as Emily's list, and I've had other organizations say that they do feel it is still a motivating factor for many Americans when they have the chance to challenge these horrible laws. So thanks for being here.
In fact, I mean, in the past, in the 7 different constitutional amendments have all passed. So let's just hope it's a trend that we can continue on. Thank you, Carol. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, marijuana, Scott, some of you may not know, as Scott mentioned, there is a third petition who have put in enough ballots to be on the ballot, and that is recreational marijuana. So that's going to also drive people to the ballot, liberal people, I think, to the ballot box as well. So we hope we're going to have a good turnout with these petitions contributing to motivate people to vote.
We have Sally wanted to make a comment. If you want to come on out, Sally.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that as a general matter, and since Congress is pretty much paralyzed,
Right.
the movement on reproductive freedom has been taken to the states. And it's been taken to the states in a number of manners. One is take legislatures so that we can get these laws in all these 26 states that they want to have families. But the second way to do this is to get it into the state constitutions. And there are a number of states, they are blue states, that are trying, that have done this. And so the movements, national movements that I'm involved with, including DA, is to get this into the states and put it into the constitutions, pending if we ever get federal legislation to legalize abortion. And I just wanted to give you a bit of the inside baseball strategy of people that are working on abortion rights in the United States. Thank you, Angela.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Although, Sally, you may know better than me, but not a lot of states allow petitions, right?
That I can't answer. I mean, we all have our, some, the big ones do, okay? But not all of them do.
That's right.
Yeah. But they have different manners in which the Constitution, state constitutions can be changed. Petitions are one of them, and not the only one. You're right.
No. But yeah, we're fortunate in Florida, and you know, you worry that there were discussion last year that the legislature might try to raise the bar on the required number of percentage, but that didn't happen, thank God.
Like they tried to do in Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Well, there are no more questions, Carol.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for your support, and we'll keep working on it. And I hope we'll have good news February 1st, and I'll get back to you, Scott, too. Thank you all for joining us, and I'll let Angela hand it back to Angela to wrap up.
All right. Thank everyone for coming. I have to say, this has been a somewhat shocking event, especially about the water and the abortion around the world. I mean, around Germany, not around Germany, I'm sorry, around the country. It's terrible. So I'm going to once again post the petitions, and I'm also going to post information about voting and donating to Democrats Abroad, because it's really important that we get out the vote in 2024. Any donation of any amount is good. And please, you can request an absentee ballot on January 1st, starting January 1st. So request it early, and be sure to vote, because we have the potential. We're going to have cannabis on the ballot in Florida. We're going to probably have abortion rights on the ballot, and it would be great if we could get the water rights on the ballot too. So fill out those petitions, send them back, and let's make 2024 a great year for Democrats and for Florida, because Republicans have destroyed basically a beautiful state like Florida. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time.